My name is Nathan. I'm 29, and for as long as I can remember, I believed being the quiet, helpful brother was enough. Growing up in suburban Ohio, I was the kind of sibling who never asked for credit. I always showed up with support, with stability, with whatever the family needed. Zoe was my little sister. We used to laugh late at night about pointless memes. She'd call me when things got hard, and I was always ready to help move her into a new apartment or fix something she broke by accident. I didn't expect praise. This was family, or so I thought. But last Saturday changed everything. 2 months earlier, Zoe got engaged to Jordan, a sharp and ambitious guy, nice enough, but calculating. The pressure of wedding planning hit hard. Catering, venue, photos, flowers. Zoe was overwhelmed, so without hesitation, I transferred $5,000 to her account, not as a favor but as an investment in our bond. I thought it was the least I could do. No grand gestures, no expectations. In the days before the wedding, I noticed subtle shifts. I was excluded from the bridal party message threads. When I asked Zoe about it, she said it was mostly for the bridesmaids, brushed it off with a laugh, no hard feelings. But then I wasn't mentioned in the family Facebook posts about our amazing support team. My name wasn't tagged. I told myself it didn't matter, I was still coming to their big day. On the night before, I received her itinerary. Arrive at 4 p.m., business casual. Bring a neutral gift. I dressed carefully, held my breath. At the rehearsal dinner, her soon-to-be mother-in-law looked me over and said, "Oh, you're Zoe's brother?" That was the greeting. I smiled, stiffly, and moved to sit at the far corner table. I wasn't included in the toast. Jordan thanked his roommate, her bridesmaids, even the hairdresser. Zoe thanked my inner circle. I whispered to my water glass, circled out. Then the wedding day. Arriving at the venue, arches in bloom, chairs in perfect alignment. A staff member with an earpiece smiled politely, asked for my name. She checked her clipboard, then handed me a neon orange wristband. Ceremony only. Reception is for purple and silver bands. I blinked. I'm the bride's brother. She checked again. Not on the reception list. My chest collapsed, my lungs clenched, my stomach turned. I called Zoe, no answer. I texted, no reply. I tried to breathe. I watched people with purple bands mingling. Zoe's hairstylist, her yoga instructor friend immersed in selfies. Laughter. I felt exposed, humiliated, erased. Then I saw the gift table. There it was, a dark blue envelope with a wax seal. I recognized it immediately. Inside the check I sent. Handwritten note. Wishing you joy. Strength. Something loud to dance to. Something snapped. My legs propelled me forward. I removed the envelope from the pile, turned, and walked. I lifted it where people could see. Good thing this wasn't essential either. A gasp, heads turned, some looked away. I walked down the aisle I wasn't supposed to exist in. That's when Zoe appeared, calling my name. She grabbed my wrist gently, eyes glossed. She asked what I was doing. I lifted the envelope, voice steady. Taking back something non-essential. She stuttered, tried to explain Jordan didn't include me for budget. I asked so the brother wasn't essential. She blinked, guilt flickered, her grip loosened. I slipped the envelope into my jacket. I said, I hope the stylist gives a good toast. Maybe she'll thank the florist for raising you. That line felt sharp. She flinched. Guests murmured. I turned away, walked toward the parking lot. My phone pinged a text from Mom. What did you do? Zoe is crying. Come back and apologize. I stared. Let the screen fade. I climbed in the car. No reply. I watched the guests enter the hall. Laughter drifting. I pictured Zoe scanning the crowd and not seeing me. The realization cut deeper. I'd believed I was lucky to be included, but they only wanted me when it benefited them. As I slid into the driver's seat, I noticed another message from Uncle Ray, my dad's cousin. He's always been quiet, perceptive, the one adult who saw when things were off between us. The text read, "Can we talk? I think you should know something." It landed in my chest like a dropped stone. And I knew I wasn't walking away intact. Something else was coming. I took a deep breath, looked at the envelope beside me, and braced. The story wasn't ending yet. I called Uncle Ray the moment I got home. His voice was as calm and grounding as I remembered, steady in the way that made even bad news feel survivable. I saw what happened yesterday. He said without preamble, "Saw you walking out with your head high. Just wanted to say, you didn't imagine it. You weren't being sensitive. You weren't wrong." I let those words settle, grateful but also scared of what was coming next. "There's more," he added. And that's when he dropped the first bomb. The $5,000 I gave Zoe. It didn't go toward the wedding, not the DJ, not the flowers, not even the cake. I overheard Jordan talking at the bar with one of his groomsmen. Ray continued, "They used your money for a down payment on a new car." He joked about it, called you the reliable Bank of Nathan, said you never ask questions, so Zoe figured it was fine. I sat there, frozen. That money hadn't been a surplus. I'd canceled a vacation, postponed a root canal that had been bothering me for months, and they used it to impress his family with a shiny new ride. Ray's voice softened. I didn't know if I should say anything, but after yesterday I couldn't keep quiet. I thanked him, though the words barely came out. But Ray wasn't done. "There's one more thing," he said. "You might want to check Zoe's private wedding registry." My heart skipped. She made one public, one for close friends and VIPs. Someone forwarded me the private link last month. It's revealing. My hands were shaking as I opened my laptop. After digging through emails, I found the site. Hidden in a VIP section was a contribution list. My name sat proudly beside a line item, honeymoon spa upgrade, confirmed $5,000. I stared at it, stunned. They'd not only spent my money behind my back, but they'd publicly credited me for a gift I never gave. Made me look like a bigger supporter than I was, maybe to curry favor with Jordan's family. Maybe just to flex. Rage settled into something colder, betrayal that felt calculated, layered, like I'd been typecast into a role, silent benefactor, and any deviation from that script made me the villain. The next morning, Zoe texted, "Can we talk? Yesterday got out of hand." Out of hand, like I'd spilled wine on a tablecloth, like I hadn't been systematically excluded and publicly diminished at her wedding. I didn't reply. I wasn't ready. I needed time to sit with the truth, the hurt, the humiliation. I spent the day watching the messages roll in, some sympathetic, others performative. Bridesmaids begging me to reconsider. One of them said Zoe was emotional and didn't mean it. Jordan sent a passive-aggressive text, "Sorry you misunderstood what the day was supposed to be." But the one message that mattered came late that night from my father. "You were right to leave." 5 words, no fluff, no debate, just quiet validation. I didn't even know he'd been watching. Maybe he hadn't been there physically, but emotionally, he saw me. And for the first time in years, I felt less alone. Still, I wasn't ready to forgive, because something had shifted in me, something deeper than hurt. I realized I had become a fixture in Zoe's life. Not a brother, not a person, a utility, a walking wallet, a family prop. So I waited. I didn't post anything online, didn't badmouth her in group chats, I didn't retaliate. I just let the silence do the work. And slowly, it did. On Monday, extended family started asking questions. Why wasn't Nathan in the photos? Why wasn't he at the reception? Zoe had lied, of course, told them I had an emergency, that I had to leave early, but the cracks had already begun. She didn't count on the few people who noticed the wristband, the looks, the whispers. And that's when I made my move. I finally messaged her back, short, controlled, "Let's talk, but via email. I want everything clear, no misunderstandings." She agreed. And I wrote the most difficult email of my life. Not angry, not emotional, just honest. I told her what the wristband felt like, how humiliating it was to be publicly labeled non-essential, how her bridesmaid's cruel joke cut deeper than she knew. I explained the $5,000 wasn't just money, it was trust, and that trust had been shattered. I told her I gave because I loved you, because I believed I was part of your life. But if I'm just a silent backer you call when you need help, that's not love, that's manipulation. Her reply, predictable. A mixture of deflection and wounded pride. "We thought you wouldn't mind. Jordan said we had to make tough cuts. You've always been generous. I didn't mean to hurt you." Then came the zinger. "Honestly, I feel like you're blowing this out of proportion." That's when I knew we weren't on the same page. We weren't even reading the same book. I responded. "Once more, and for the last time, I didn't make this a big thing. You did. When you treated me like an afterthought, When you used my money without asking, when you stripped me of dignity in front of 100 people, don't blame me for reacting to your choices. And I let it hang there, truth unvarnished. What followed wasn't an apology, but the beginning of a reckoning. Family started pulling away from the curated fairy tale Zoe had built. Jordan's parents were reportedly furious when they found out they hadn't paid for the DJ as they were led to believe. That the money came from me, that it had been rerouted to a car. Zoe tried to spin it, told people I had misunderstood, but the more she spoke, the more tangled it got. And the final blow, I canceled the check. It hadn't been cashed yet, thank God. I called the bank, voided it, and then sent Zoe one last message. This is not punishment, this is my boundary. I will not fund your silence anymore. A week later, I got an envelope in the mail, no return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Inside, a photocopy of a check made out to me for $5,000 and a short note, in her handwriting. You made your point, I don't agree with all of it, but I get it. I'm sorry. This is what you're owed. I didn't deposit it, I didn't need to. Because finally, for the first time in years, I wasn't the non-essential sibling. But that wasn't the end. Because something else was coming. Something that would push everything to the edge and force me to decide forgive and forget, or take the final step toward justice. The envelope stayed in my desk drawer for days. I didn't open it again. I didn't tell anyone about it. It just sat there, quiet, inert. Like the weight of everything I had been carrying was now reduced to a thin paper promise. I'd like to say that things ended there, that the story wrapped up with a bow of regret and a check-shaped apology. But closure isn't always quiet. Sometimes, it comes screaming back in waves, pulled in by the undertow of consequences no one saw coming. 3 weeks after the wedding, I got a call from Uncle Ray again. This time, his tone was graver. Have you heard, he asked, about Zoe and Jordan? I hadn't. I'd gone low contact with the family, not out of spite, but for self-preservation. He sighed. Their finances are a mess, apparently. The car's already been repossessed. I blinked. Wait, what? Yeah, turns out that $5,000 didn't even cover the whole down payment. They financed the rest on credit, assuming they'd get more wedding gifts to pay it off. But Jordan's parents cut them off after everything, and the bank wasn't forgiving. It didn't give me pleasure. Not exactly, but I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a flicker of grim validation, like maybe the universe was balancing the scales. Ray went on, Zoe's been telling people you sabotaged her wedding, that your scene scared off guests from giving more. She's spiraling. I took a breath, slow, even. This was what narcissists did. Rewrite the story to stay the hero, or the victim, never the villain. Did anyone believe her, I asked? Some. But others, they're starting to see through it. That night, I opened the envelope again. Not for the check, for the note. I read it 3 times. You made your point. I don't agree with all of it, but I get it. I'm sorry. It wasn't accountability. It was avoidance dressed as contrition. And yet, it stirred something in me, not forgiveness, but clarity. This wasn't about Zoe anymore. This was about me. About years of being the reliable one, the helper, the fixer, the brother who always showed up, even when no one noticed. I started thinking about all the other times she had used me asking for rides at 3 a.m., dumping emotional baggage, then disappearing, borrowing money for emergencies that turned into brunch dates on Instagram. And me, I always smiled, always showed up, always stayed quiet. Until the wristband. That stupid neon orange wristband had become my personal line in the sand. And now that I had crossed it, there was no going back. But here's where the story takes a turn. A few days later, I received an anonymous package, no return address, just a padded envelope. Inside was a USB drive and a typed note. I think you should know what your sister and Jordan really planned. I didn't feel right staying silent anymore. My pulse quickened. I ran a virus scan, paranoia, maybe, but once cleared, I plugged it in. There were 3 files, audio recordings. The first was scratchy, a bit garbled, but unmistakable. It was Jordan. If Nathan gives the money, just let him think it's for the DJ. He doesn't ask questions. He's soft. We can use it for the car. Hell, tell him we paid for flowers with it, whatever. The second was worse. It was Zoe. He's so desperate to be included. It's sad, really, like, if he weren't my brother, I wouldn't even invite him, but I knew he'd help. He always does. My chest constricted. And then the third one, the one that broke something open. Zoe again, we'll give him one of the cheap wristbands. Say it's a mistake if he asks, if he makes a fuss. Fine, we say he misunderstood. Make him the dramatic one. He always folds anyway. There it was. Not oversight, not bad planning. Deliberate. Calculated exclusion. The recordings made it undeniable. All the moments I had questioned myself, the gaslighting, the self-doubt, the maybe I'm overreacting, it evaporated. I knew now that I wasn't crazy. I had been played, and worse. They'd built a trap so subtle, so polished, that even I had almost walked away thinking it was my fault. But not anymore. I sent the audio files to Uncle Ray first. His reply came within an hour. It's time. Let's fix this. Together, we devised a plan, not revenge. Exactly, just truth, unvarnished, indisputable, public. Ray called a few trusted family members and asked them to gather at his house the next Sunday. Just a small group, no drama, just casual conversation. Curiosity did the rest. 15 people showed up. I played the recordings. I watched faces fall, hands cover mouths, eyes narrow with recognition and betrayal. Jordan's parents were there. So was our Aunt Lisa, the one who'd always sided with Zoe. Even she looked shaken. I can't believe, she whispered, she did this to her own brother. Jordan's dad stood up halfway through the second file. We paid for the venue, he muttered, but Zoe told us Nathan paid nothing. The dominoes began to fall. That meeting didn't stay secret for long. Within days, the truth spread through the extended family like wildfire. And for once, it wasn't me being whispered about in corners. It was them. Zoe tried damage control. Of course, claimed the recordings were fake. Said I edited them. Said Ray was trying to divide the family. But too many people had heard the voices, had seen the patterns. She stopped replying to texts after that. But Jordan, he called me. I hope you're happy, he snapped. I stayed quiet. Because of you. Her family's turning against her. She's devastated. I finally spoke. Calm, steady. No, Jordan, because of me, they finally see her. He hung up. The silence that followed was different this time. It wasn't awkward. It was peaceful. But I wasn't done yet, because now, with the truth exposed and the stage cleared, I had one last move. One final act that would reclaim more than just my voice. It would reclaim my place. And it was already in motion. The truth was out. But exposure alone didn't equate to resolution. What gnawed at me wasn't just what Zoe and Jordan did, but the sheer audacity that they thought they could rewrite the story and I would just disappear from it. But if they wanted to turn this into a narrative battle, I was ready. Only this time, I'd be the author. I started by reclaiming my own voice publicly. I wrote a long, thoughtful post on my private Facebook, not for pity, not for attention, but because I needed a record. A timestamp. A counter to Zoe's carefully curated lies. I didn't name names. I didn't curse. I simply walked people through the facts, the wristband, the exclusion, the $5,000 deception, the recordings. By the end of the day, the post had over 130 comments, messages flooded in, DMs from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Thank you for telling your side. But what caught me off guard were the messages from her side. Friends of Zoe's, bridesmaids, even the stylist. One of them, Mia, a former college friend of Zoe's, wrote, "She told us you backed out last minute, that you had drama with your ex and didn't want to ruin her day. I feel sick." That's when I realized just how far Zoe had gone to protect her image. Every lie she told, every omission, wasn't just about shielding herself, it was about erasing me. And as more people came forward with similar stories, moments of being used, discarded, dismissed, it became clear this wasn't just about one bad wedding. It was about a lifetime of Zoe playing puppet master. So I planned something more final, not vengeful, restorative, a podcast. Not some petty rant on TikTok or anonymous Reddit post, but a deeply personal audio story, something crafted, something raw. I called it Wristbands and Red Flags. Just 10 episodes, each one focused on a theme: loyalty, gaslighting, the golden child myth, quiet siblings, financial exploitation. And at the heart of each was my story. I changed names, used voice actors, blurred details, but the truth bled through every sentence. And the final episode, it ended with the recordings, the real ones, uploaded anonymously, labeled Family Fiction You Decide. The series gained traction faster than I expected. By the third week, it had over 30,000 listens. A few local media blogs picked it up, calling it a cathartic deep dive into toxic family dynamics. Listeners sent in their own stories. One woman messaged, "I cried hearing about the envelope. I've been Zoe's scapegoat for years. You gave me language for it." But not everyone was moved. Zoe found out, and this time she didn't stay silent. She sent me a cease and desist letter through a lawyer, claimed defamation, emotional distress, claimed the recordings were illegally obtained. I showed it to Ray, whose wife happened to be a lawyer. He looked at the letter, then chuckled. "She doesn't have a case," he said, "but she is afraid. That's why she's escalating." I drafted a response, firm, legal, backed by timestamps and testimonies. I reminded her that her voice was on those recordings, that she had put her own words into the world, that maybe it was time she sat with them instead of trying to erase them. After that, she went quiet. But Jordan didn't. He started making noise online, vague tweets about backstabbing family and manipulative siblings. At first, I ignored them, but then he posted a photo, a close-up of the gift table at the wedding, zoomed in on my envelope, captioned, "When generosity comes with strings." That was my line. I wrote a public comment, not petty, just surgical. That envelope contained $5,000 meant for the wedding DJ and decor. Instead, it went to your car without permission. Kindly don't lecture me on strings when you forge the knots yourself. The post went viral. Within hours, people were picking apart his timeline, asking questions, digging through inconsistencies. It wasn't just personal anymore, it was public narrative collapse. And while Jordan floundered, Zoe disappeared, deleted her socials, backed out of brunches, skipped a cousin's baby shower. I didn't dance in the wreckage, but I didn't grieve it either. Because the next part wasn't about them. It was about rebuilding me. I started therapy, finally, and the first thing my therapist said after hearing the story, "You've been the emotional accountant for your family for too long. They keep overdrafting, and you keep covering the fees." That hit harder than I expected. So I made some changes. I moved, took a job offer across the country, cut down contact to only those who showed respect. Ray, a couple cousins, my dad. I donated the check Zoe sent back still uncashed to a charity for estranged siblings. And I kept the podcast going. More episodes, more voices, more healing. But one day, an email arrived. Subject from Zoe. I froze. It had been almost a year. The message was short. "Nathan, I listened to the podcast. All of it. I don't have the words yet, but I'm trying to understand. I didn't see it before. I do now. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just a second chance to listen. If you're ever willing to talk, Zoe." I didn't reply. Not right away. Because some letters don't need answers. Some wounds need silence to scab. But in that moment, for the first time in years, I didn't feel erased. I felt seen. And that was a kind of justice. 2 months passed, seasons turned, and so did I. Not quickly, not dramatically, but like the steady erosion of a cliff. Slow and irreversible. The family I once tiptoed around no longer held the same gravitational pull, and the man I used to be, the one who kept showing up, quietly absorbing every bruise in the name of keeping the peace, he was gone. The podcast, once born out of raw frustration, had evolved into something gentler, but no less powerful. It became a space where others, like me, could lay down the weight of being non-essential. Each episode sparked letters, voice notes, voicemails from strangers turned kindred spirits. People shared stories of exclusion, gaslighting, and conditional love. It was like a mirror, and it reflected back not just pain but resilience. One message, in particular, stayed with me. It came from a woman in Oregon named Janie, mid-40s, who had been cut out of her sister's wedding because she didn't match the aesthetic. She wrote, "I thought I was being petty for still thinking about it after 5 years. But then I heard your story, and for the first time, I felt like I wasn't crazy, like maybe my hurt mattered too." And that was it, wasn't it? That's what this whole journey had been about, not revenge, not proving I was right, but proving that my pain mattered, that I mattered, even if only to myself. Zoe and I haven't spoken since that email. I never responded. Some days I wonder if she meant it, if she truly listened, or if it was just another performance, a last-ditch attempt to reclaim control of the narrative. But then I remember her understanding, or lack thereof, is no longer my responsibility. I don't hate her, I don't wish her ill. But I don't miss her either. That's a truth I never thought I'd be able to say. There was a time when the idea of losing her felt like losing part of myself, but I've come to learn that letting go of someone who diminishes you doesn't leave a void. It makes space for dignity, for peace, for people who don't require you to shrink in order to stand beside them. Uncle Ray visits sometimes. We sit on the porch, drink coffee, talk about everything and nothing. He told me once, "Family isn't blood. Family is who claps when you win, who sits beside you when you're hurting, and who never lets your name disappear from the story." I keep that close, because that's what I've found in unexpected places in podcast listeners, in old friends who reached out, in my therapist, even in myself. I've learned that love isn't just about showing up. It's about being seen when you do. It's about someone saying, "I'm glad you're here," not just, "Oh, you came." And the moment I stopped accepting scraps of affection disguised as loyalty, that was the moment I began writing a new story. A better one. If you're watching this, maybe you've been the non-essential guest at someone's table. Maybe you've worn a metaphorical wristband your whole life. Told you only mattered under certain conditions. Let me tell you now, you don't need to keep proving your worth to people determined not to see it. You can walk away, you can take your envelope back, and you can still be kind. Just not to those who treat your kindness like currency. I don't regret what happened. Not the wristband, not the walkout, not the envelope, not the silence. Because all of it led me here. To this voice, to this clarity, to this freedom. And no, I won't be attending Zoe's baby shower, or their future housewarming, or any other event where I'm invited out of obligation rather than desire. But I'll be here, living, laughing, loving deliberately, telling the truth, writing stories. And if one of them sounds a little like yours, that's not an accident. It's a reminder. You are not alone. You are not dramatic. And you are never non-essential. Story 2. I'm Tessa Grant, 28, youngest of 3. Forever labeled pleasant but plain. My sister Camille, 32, has been stealing spotlights since kindergarten valedictorian. Venture capital darling, regular cover star of TechFront. At family dinners, she's the main course, I'm the parsley. What my relatives never noticed while Camille soared through Ivy League corridors. I was at a Polytechnic night program learning to weld code to hardware. I built demo drones for city fire crews, wrote tutorials nobody read, and stacked freelance checks into a shoebox labeled Someday. That someday arrived on a chilly Monday when I walked into Helix Ventures, resume clutched like a life raft. The firm funds rescue tech startups, the sort of place where my back alley prototypes might finally count. The lobby walls were living moss, the reception desk floated on hidden supports. I whispered my mantra, show your work, not your worry. Inside the glass conference suite, 6 partners formed a neat row, and there, third from the left, sat Camille. I blinked so hard my contacts stung. She didn't return the look. Instead, she turned to the woman beside her and murmured something that made both of them smile. The temperature under my blazer dropped 10 degrees. Candidates pitched one by one, applause for the Ivy kid with a blockchain toothbrush, nods for the fintech bro. Then my name. I stood, palms icy but voice clear. Camille flicked through my resume. Lips pursed. "Miss Grant," she said, as if meeting me in traffic, "you list field-ready aerial prototype. Where's the patent I filed provisional status last month?" I answered. She tapped her pen. "So, an idea, not an asset." Snickers. Heat crawled up my neck. I pulled a mini quadcopter from my bag. Asset. I double-tapped, The drone rose, traced a perfect square, and landed on Camille's notepad. She flinched, then smiled thin and cold. Before the partners could speak, she scribbled "risk unvetted" across my application in red ink and passed it down the line. No questions followed. Just polite thank yous and a request to leave the model for future inspection. I walked out carrying nothing but a hollowed chest. In the hallway, I texted my fiancé, Adrian Cole. Interview over. Going home. I didn't add details. Adrian was mid-Asia flight. Returning tonight, he had never met Camille, an accident of schedules I'd never bothered to correct. Outside, drizzle blurred city lights. I ducked into a bus shelter and opened my notebook. Across every page were improvement sketches for that drone. Camille's word, risk, flashed until anger burned through the fog. I marched back into Helix, bypassed reception before courage could cool. Partners were gathering notebooks when the doors burst inward. Not from me, from Adrian. Jet lag couldn't blunt his presence. Dark suit, no tie, CEO of Nexa Response Systems, world leader in disaster robotics, head swiveled. My jaw nearly followed. Adrian shook hands with each partner like old teammates. Evidently, they were. Camille's expression slid from irritation to calculation. Mr. Cole, we didn't realize you were consulting on today's slate, she purred. I wasn't, he replied. Spotting me, I'm here for her. He crossed the room, lifted the grounded drone, and held it up. Nexa's next joint venture depends on this platform. Camille's pen slipped. That unit is experimental. Adrian smiled. Tested at 2 wildfire sites last week, lives saved 9. He placed a signed purchase letter on the table. Will license from the builder directly provided Helix finalizes her fellowship. Silence thickened. I met Camille's stare, no malice now, just stunned recognition. At last the senior partner cleared his throat. Ms. Grant, allow us to revisit your file. Tomorrow. Same time. I nodded once. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady. In the elevator, Adrian squeezed my shoulder. I planned a quieter surprise, he said, chuckling. Timing needs work. I laughed for the first time all day. You just turned my some days into now. Yet as the doors opened onto the glimmering lobby, I understood the battle wasn't finished. Camille would not surrender her crown. She'd simply lost a round. But for the first time, I wasn't hiding in her shadow, I was casting one of my own. Morning sunlight bounced off Helix's glass atrium like applause. I arrived 10 minutes early. Drone case in hand, pulse steadier than yesterday. Camille stood by the coffee bar, phone glued to her ear. When she saw me, she ended the call mid-sentence. Big entrance yesterday, she said, stirring a latte she'd never drink. Bigger rescue last week. I answered. The corner of her mouth twitched, half smile, half snarl. Inside the boardroom, the partners looked refreshed. Curious, a fresh resume packet lay at each seat, mine. But reprinted on Helix letterhead, Adrian's purchase letter sat on top like a gold seal. Senior partner Dr. Malik began, Ms. Grant, we misjudged readiness for deployment. Your fellowship is approved 12 months, prototype to production, Helix at 20% equity. I exhaled. But Camille cut in. Standard fellowship includes a mentor, I volunteer. Every instinct yelled no. I forced a polite nod. Battlefields require witnesses. Helix gave me a sunlit desk, funds for parts, and 2 interns quick with solder but slow with coffee orders. Adrian forwarded disaster zone data, punctuated by midnight encouragement texts. Meanwhile, Camille scheduled strategy check-ins every other day. She critiqued slide fonts, questioned gyroscope tolerances, and hinted that Adrian's contract might scare future investors. By Friday, I found a legal summons on my keyboard, patent interference claim filed by Camille Grant. She alleged my drone's guidance routine resembled code from her college thesis never published, but somehow leaked. I stared at the document until letters blurred. I hurried to Adrian's office across town. He flipped through the pages. Brow low, she can't prove this, but she can stall you until funding dries. I sank into the chair. Family feels like quicksand, struggle and you sink faster. He knelt, took my hands, then we build stepping stones. We called every coder who'd pair programmed with me, dug up Git commits, timestamped design notebooks, evidence stacked like bricks. Sunday dinner at the Grants was a ritual I'd skipped for months. I showed anyway, evidence binder in my tote. Mom greeted me with a distracted hug. Dad's smile looked preemptively apologetic. Camille arrived late, kissed the air by Mom's cheek, and announced she'd secured family IP interests, translation suing little sis for everyone's sake. Forks froze. Dad cleared his throat. Maybe we settle this quietly. I slid a flash drive across the table. Video from my first prototype 2 years before Camille's thesis. Time-stamped. Open source repo link inside. Camille flushed. Old footage proves nothing, Mom whispered. Girls, please. I faced them all. This isn't about girls. It's about work that saves firefighters. Either support me or stay out of the way. I grabbed my coat. The chair legs screeched like a verdict. Court ordered both parties to share code bases. My lawyer, a soft-spoken data forensics wizard, compared hashes, commit histories, even variable naming habits. Verdict 0 overlap. Camille's claim evaporated. The judge dismissed the suit for lack of merit and hinted at sanctions for abuse of process. Outside the courthouse, Camille cornered me, her facade cracked, eyes glassy, voice tight. You've been handed everything, fiancé CEO. Viral hero story. I barked a laugh. Handed I cleaned office kitchens to buy LiPo batteries. She glared at the sky like it betrayed her. You'll regret embarrassing me. I walked away before my composure did. Litigation delay cost me 2 weeks, so I lived at the lab. The interns Kavi and Rio dubbed the new model Phoenix because every burned circuit rose better. We added thermal mapping and a foam pellet canister to smother spot fires. On test day, Phoenix zipped through smoke canisters in the parking deck, painting a real-time heat map onto my tablet. Applause echoed against concrete. Dr. Malik authorized a closed-door pitch to Helix's limited partners, high-net-worth sharks who smelled weakness. Camille attended. Arms crossed. I opened with wildfire footage, blazes gnawing Cedar Hills, families fleeing, then Phoenix diving through ash, dropping foam, guiding crews. Silence held until an LP whispered, "What's the capex per unit?" I answered crisp. Questions flew. I volleyed. Camille stayed mute. Vote tally 7. Yes. 1 abstain. Camille, funding secured $8 million. First tranche wired Monday. That night, fire alarms shrieked through Helix's prototype wing. Sprinklers soaked workstations. Security footage later showed a maintenance tech tampering with the server rack, then fleeing. Hard drives fried. CAD files gone. Insurance-covered property but not lost hours. I spent dawn wiping water off Phoenix's carbon fiber frame. Adrian arrived with hot tea and a portable drive. Off-site backups. He said, I suspected foul play after the suit. He plugged it in. Schematics bloomed on screen. My throat tightened in gratitude. Security traced the badge used by the saboteur temporary card logged out to Camille earlier that day for visitor access. HR opened an investigation. Camille took personal leave. 3 weeks later, Phoenix soared above a controlled burn in New Mexico, live-streamed to news outlets. It extinguished test flames in 64 seconds, beat the response drone from a rival firm by half. Media headlines crowned Helix the new face of civic robotics. My inbox exploded. Mom texted a single line, "Saw you on TV, proud beyond words." Dad followed with a thumbs-up emoji. Healing might start with digital stickers, I decided. Helix offered me the kind of office Camille once posed in, but I chose a workshop overlooking the city river. Adrian moved his standing desk beside mine on Fridays, citing better coffee. Kavi and Rio painted a Phoenix mural on the back wall. I didn't stop them. One evening, Dr. Malik visited, hands clasped. We're creating an internal accelerator, he said. Name it, shape it, run it. Seat at the investment committee too. My pulse fluttered. On one condition, mentorship quotas for overlooked founders. He smiled. That's why we picked you. Camille's leave became resignation. Rumor says she's launching a fund in Singapore. Let her. The world is wide. So is karma. I pinned her red ink word risk on the lab corkboard, right beside Phoenix's first flight photo. Not as a wound, as a weather report. Storms happen. Some of us learn to fly through them. Tomorrow I brief municipal chiefs, then catch a red-eye to a beach I've never seen with a man who believes in off-site backups for hearts and hard drives. For now, I sit at my cluttered bench, solder fumes curling like incense, grateful for every underestimation that trained me to surprise the room. The morning we opened Helix hatch, The elevator barely contained the noise. 20 young founders squeezed beside me, hoodies, hijabs, hearing aids, ambition sparking like static. 2 months earlier, I'd sketched Hatch on a napkin. Now glass doors slid back to reveal a floor of standing desks and skylights. Kavi cut a ribbon made of recycled parachute cord. Rio fired a DIY confetti cannon that jammed, then exploded twice the glitter. Perfect. We laid ground rules, zero equity stipends. Mentor hours logged like flight time. Demo day judged by firefighters and medics, not VCs. The cohort cheered, my throat prickled. Somewhere. Camille would call it charity. I called it proof. Success attracts two things, funding offers and gossip. The latter hit first. An anonymous blog post titled "Grant Sister Grift" claimed I'd plagiarized Camille's thesis and bribed the court. The evidence, blurry screenshots and a source inside Helix. It smelled of desperation, synthetic lemon with a decay note underneath, but algorithms love scandal. Twitter swarmed. Dr. Malik forwarded the link with a single line, "Storm incoming." "My umbrella's up if you need it," Adrian texted. "I'll draft a statement, you finish the censors." Knowing I didn't have to fight alone calmed me more than caffeine. While PR traced IP addresses, Hatch kept hatching. A team from Detroit finished a wearable locator beacon for autistic kids who wander. A Kenyan engineer 3D printed floodgate clips from recycled bottle caps. Watching them iterate felt like reading a future I'd always wanted but never believed I could write. Late one Tuesday, Mom called, voice quivering like loose glass. "Your sister. Something's wrong." She forwarded an article from Straight Finance. Camille Grant's Catalyst Fund under investigation for misused relief capital. Turns out Camille's Quick Build venture fund had accepted pandemic recovery grants, then funneled cash into a glitzy NFT marketplace that collapsed overnight. Regulators froze her accounts, partners bolted. The video clip attached showed Camille exiting an office tower, sunglasses large enough to double as shields, reporters shouting questions that bounced off her silence. Failure has a scent, burnt sugar and cold sweat. I remembered mine outside Helix months ago and tasted sympathy laced with caution. Mom sniffled. "She won't answer calls. Could you?" Across the room, Phoenix prototypes whirred, waiting for calibration. My calendar bulged, yet the memory of Camille's glassy eyes outside court lingered. "I have a conference in Singapore next week," I said. "I'll try." Demo day arrived before I'd packed. Firefighters in ash-streaked uniforms tested devices. Paramedics judged user interfaces. The Detroit beacon rang through 4 concrete walls. The Kenyan flood clip withstood a hose blast. 2 teams earned purchase orders on the spot. Cameras flashed. Founders cried. I nearly did too. As the crowd dispersed, Emma, the shy recruit I'd nudged months ago, paused at my desk. "First investor pitch tomorrow," she said. Voice shaking. I keep hearing Camille's voice in my head, saying I'm small. I pressed a Phoenix decal into her palm. "Put that on your laptop. It reminds predators we carry talons." She smiled like sun-breaking fog. The flight to Singapore was 14 hours of recycled air and mental rehearsals. What would I say to a sister who'd sued me, sabotaged me, and now sat in ruins of her own making? Sleep finally pinned me. I dreamed of 2 birds, 1 gold, 1 copper circling a lighthouse but never landing. I landed at dawn, humidity wrapping me like a hot towel. The tech summit buzzed with neon booths. Phoenix demos drew crowds. Yet my focus flicked to my phone until an unknown number blinked. Camille. Lobby of the Pacifica Hotel. The text read, "Now or never." Camille waited beside an infinity fountain, blazer immaculate despite headlines. Her voice, when it came, was paper thin. "Before you speak, know I deserve it." I set my backpack down. "That depends what it is." She exhaled. "I built Catalyst to prove I wasn't just Helix's pet prodigy. I cut corners. Investors fled. I might face charges." Her eyes finally met mine. "How do you stand up when people cheer your collapse?" The question gutted me. I pictured myself in that mossy lobby, resume wilting. First, stop looking for a stage, stand on ground. I gestured to the fountain bench. She sat. I outlined resources: pro bono compliance lawyers, mental health grant for founders, a hatch seat non-public, conditional on full restitution. Her lip quivered. "You do that? After all this?" Because someone once pinned risk on my life's work, I know what rescue feels like. Tears smudged her mascara. For a heartbeat, we were just sisters, girls who once built blanket forts while our parents forgot sunblock at the beach. She whispered, I can't promise redemption, promise effort. I said, the rest is iteration. We parted without hug or handshake, but lighter. Days later, Hatch's PR traced the smear blog to a marketing firm hired by Catalyst's ex-CFO. With subpoenas looming, the site vanished. Social feeds moved on. They always do. Emma's pitch landed seed funding. She sent a selfie wearing a Phoenix t-shirt. Caption, no more small. I pinned it next to risk. Camille checked into a restitution program, liquidated personal assets to repay grants, and quietly emailed mom daily. Progress. Like solder. Sets slowly. On a Friday sunset, Adrian and I climbed the helideck above Helix. Wind whipped my jacket. City lights winked. Below, Hatch's floor glowed, each desk a star. Remember the bus shelter, he asked, where failure tasted like rain? I said, yeah. He pulled a small velvet box inside, a titanium ring shaped like phoenix wings. How about trading weather for altitude together? Tears blurred the skyline. I said yes to the man, to the height, to the uncharted sky. But another horizon waits. Wildfire season peaks next month, and Phoenix units ship to 4 continents. Part 4 will track the first live deployment, Camille's tentative return, and the moment I learned that even rescues sometimes cost more than you plan to pay. Mid-August. A lightning storm splintered the western slope of the Sierra Nevada. By dawn, 3 counties glowed on satellite like embers in a grate. CAL FIRE's deputy chief rang my cell before Coffee Phoenix is up. Right, packed and fueled, I answered, stomach already tight. We air freighted 16 drones to the forward command base, folding wings like origami swans, batteries and fireproof coffins. I rode jump seat beside the crates, headset humming with crew chatter. When the cargo door opened, smoke rolled in, sweet and bitter. Inside a makeshift trailer, I watched thermal feeds bloom red and orange. Unit P03 swooped under the canopy, dropped foam pellets, then pivoted to lead a strike team around a hidden flare-up. Radio's crackled drone just saved our backsides. My throat clogged for a second, pure relief. 2 hours in, gusts shifted. P11's rotor caught a branch, spiraled out, and vanished from signal. Lost protocol kicked mark coordinates. Alert cruise. Morn later, I logged the crash with a single keystroke that felt like pulling a tooth. By sunset, containment lines held at 80%. The incident commander clasped my shoulder. Your birds fight like people who learned fire the hard way. I thought of Camille, of every scorch we'd traded, and whispered, all lessons are paid for. Back in Fort Collins, finance tallied damages, 1 drone gone, 3 scorched. Replacement parts tallied 6 figures. Helix board murmured about margins. I presented field footage smoke. Then sudden clear air where Phoenix carved escape corridors. Insurance reps watched in silence. One removed her glasses to wipe tears. Funding motion passed 8-0. Still, the crash nagged me. I scheduled a team huddle. Hardware can be rebuilt, I said, voice steady, but we'll honor the sacrifice log. P11 as Guardian retired. Not lost. Kavi and Rio nodded, eyes shining. 2 weeks later, Hatch's empty desk number 12 filled. Camille walked in carrying only a tablet and a reusable water bottle. She wore no makeup, no armor, just quiet intent. She'd accepted the off-grid mentorship roll code reviews, compliance triage, 0 publicity. The cohort stared, whispering. I gathered them. Folks, this is Camille, I said. Her past is public, her skills are vital. We measure people by the work they choose now. She inclined her head. First lesson, document everything. It saves you when your memory won't. Trust trickled, not poured, but it trickled. Adrian and I chose a fire lookout tower no drone could reach. Symbolic. He joked. 20 guests climbed switchbacks through yellow pines. Camille arrived late, lugging boxes of freeze-dried wildflower confetti. Mom fussed over tablecloths. Dad practiced giving me away while pretending not to tear up. At golden hour, sun spilling like syrup, Adrian slipped a titanium Phoenix wing band on my finger. Vows were short for altitude and downdraft, for code that compiles and code that crashes. Laughter echoed across valleys. I felt lighter than smoke. During the reception, my satellite phone buzzed New South Wales Fire Service. Blazes racing drought-cracked eucalyptus. They needed Phoenix by Friday. I caught Adrian's eye. He nodded before I spoke. Honeymoon postponed. Camille approached as I dialed logistics. Take my miles, she said, holding out a platinum card. And these? She slid a thumb drive across the table-optimized pathfinding code. Half of it her handwriting, fewer branch hits. I studied her face. Regret, resolve, no plea for praise. I closed her hand around the drive. Upload it yourself, then come with us. She swallowed. Think the crew can stand me? They can once you show up at 0400 like the rest of us. We landed to crimson skies. Australian crews set up a joint ops tent. Camille crawled under laptops, patching firmware. When Unit P21 balked at GPS sync, she yanked off her jacket, dove in with Rio, and soldered a new antenna while sweat streaked ash down her cheeks. At dawn, Phoenix Swarm lifted extra eyes, extra foam, flight paths 17% leaner thanks to Camille's algorithm. No crashes, containment in 48 hours. Reporters asked for the tech lead. I waved Camille forward. She blinked in camera glare, then spoke clearly about open-source telemetry and community licensing. Headlines the next day. Sisters rewrite firefighting playbook. Helix Lobby greeted us with cake shaped like a drone tasted better than epoxy. Barely. The cohort burst into spontaneous clapping when Camille stepped off the elevator. She tried to retreat. I nudged her toward the confetti zone. Healing measured in inches, not hugs. Later we stood alone at the workshop window, city lights flickering like dying embers. You could have left me to implode. She said, Phoenix burns before it rises. I replied, now it's your turn to lift. She nodded once, tears unshed. That was enough. Guardian drone memorial plaque installed. Hatch cohort 002 applications, triple capacity. Camille pays final restitution installment. Regulators close case with cautionary commendation. Adrian and I schedule a second honeymoon location undisclosed to Forest Service hotlines. I pin a new scrap beside Risk and Guardian's photo. It reads, some fires clear space for seedlings. Measure worth by the forest that follows. I lock the lab, step into the night air, and inhale the faintest scent of rain on asphalt, promise that even scorched earth remembers how to grow. Story 3. My name is Amelia Rhodes. I'm 33, and most of New Orleans knows me as the reporter who pries open closed doors. That reputation cost me my family. 5 years ago, I walked away from the Rhodes clan, the old money dynasty that owns half the riverfront. They called it a timeout. I called it exile. My mother returned every birthday letter I sent. My older brother, Graham, blocked my number after I exposed his slumlord buddies in the paper. My father's final words to me were, you can't light our house on fire and still expect a seat at dinner. I built a life without them. Night desks, bad coffee, endless edits until I earned my own column. I rented a shotgun flat in the Marini, grew tomatoes on the balcony, learned how quiet a city can be when no one waits for you at Sunday lunch. Then yesterday a package arrived, cream envelope, gold wax seal, the Rhodes crest winking like it never spit me out. Inside, Graham Rhodes and Celeste Gardner request the honor, a wedding invitation thick enough to stop a bullet. Tucked behind it, in my mother's looping script. Please come home. Leah, I miss you. They don't know I'm writing. My hands shook, but not from fear, from the weight of everything that note tried to erase. Thanksgiving, 5 years passed. The house smelled of praline yams and expensive tension. Graham lifted his champagne. Here's to family legacies, he said, smiling hard. Some of us protect them, some sell them for clicks. Everyone laughed, edges too sharp. I set my fork down, told them the renters Graham threatened had heat again because of my article, and that I didn't regret a word. Mother wept. Father ordered me out. No one called after. The silence grew teeth. I stared at the RSVP card under the kitchen bulb. Not anger this time, not grief. Something steadier. Resolve. I called Rowan, my best friend from J-School, now a podcast host. Should I go? I asked. Rowan inhaled through her teeth. Depends. Do you want revenge or release? Neither. I said, I want the echo in my head to stop. Then pack a spare battery for your recorder. Rhodes. Truth loves a mic. That night, I dug out Granddad's pocket notebook, the one he gave me when I chose journalism over the family law firm. On the first page, he'd written, "Stories change the world. Courage changes the storyteller." 5 years is long enough to let one wound fester. Maybe it was time to lance it. Before dawn, I researched Celeste Gardner. She wasn't a silk-draped trophy. She ran a legal clinic that battled predatory landlords. 8 months earlier, she'd sent my newsroom a tip that became my biggest exposé. We never met face-to-face, but I owed her half my Pulitzer submission file. The irony tasted sweet. The brother who sneered at my tenants' rights crusades was marrying the lawyer who fed them to me. The decision still carried weight. Would I combust on contact? Could I stand in their ballroom without shrinking? I slid the invitation into a manila folder titled Closure Mission. Under it, I placed newspaper clippings of my award citations, letters from families my work had helped, one crisp printout of Celeste's original email to me, proof that Graham's new world was already entwined with mine. I wasn't marching back to flaunt success. I was bringing receipts for myself, reminders that I hadn't wasted the years they pretended didn't exist. Monday morning, mist-hugging Royal Street. I drove to the cemetery where Granddad rests. Marble still clean. Rowan tends it when I forget. I set a single camellia on the stone, heading into the lion's den. I whispered, "Keep the light on." As I turned away, the sky cracked open with Gulf rain. Felt like a benediction. Back at the apartment, I filled out the RSVP, accepts with honor, sent it certified, no turning back. I spent the next week in the courtrooms covering a corruption trial, but every gavel bang sounded like a heartbeat counting down. When the verdict printed, I typed one final sentence for my editor. Sometimes justice shows up uninvited. Then I requested a weekend off. The Rhodes estate sits on the bluff above the river. All Greek columns and family ghosts. Late Friday sun made the window glass blaze. I parked my dented Civic between two black SUVs worth more than my yearly salary and caught my reflection navy sheath. Leather flats, Granddad's notebook tucked like armor in my clutch. Not camouflage, just me. Inside. Chandeliers dripped crystal. Conversations dipped as I walked by, replaced by smiles stretched too thin to hold. A cousin whispered, "She really came," like I was a thunderstorm they'd hoped would stay offshore. I kept moving until the hallway opened onto the atrium, and there stood Graham. Perfect suit, perfect grin. Arm around Celeste. He lifted his bourbon in mock salute. "Sis," he said loud enough for the room, "thought you'd be busy chasing slumlords." Laughter skittered across marble. I felt the notebook's edge press my palm. I did not falter. "Hi, Graham," I said, voice even. "I'm here for the wedding and the truth." Celeste's smile faltered, eyes narrowing on me, not hostile, curious. Recognition sparked. A waiter chimed a crystal bell, rehearsal dinner seating. The crowd flowed around us like water. Graham offered his arm to lead me to the family table, arrogance oozing. I slipped past him instead, heading for the podium where the toasts would be made. The first volley of the past was coming, and I planned to meet it head-on. The rehearsal dinner begins like every Rhodes production, flawless on the surface, hollow underneath. A jazz trio threads soft notes through the atrium. Glass rosettes dangle over white linen tables. A monogrammed placecard, Amelia Rhodes, waits beside Graham's at the head. I choose instead an empty seat near the kitchen doors. Let the staff flow freely. Let me breathe. Father stands first. Silver hair lit by chandelier glare. To my son Graham and his brilliant bride-to-be. Celeste. Polite applause. He prattles about lineage. Riverfront projects. Legacy. He never says my name, but the space where it should go hovers like smoke. Mother's turn. Her hands tremble around the flute. She thanks the caterer, the florist, even the valet company. When her eyes land on me, voice thins and to family reunited. She sits fast, relief flooding her shoulders. Graham follows. Bourbon champion raised. Some folks fight injustice with headlines. He winks at me. I prefer to build something the city can see. Guests laugh on cue. My pen taps the notebook 1, 2, 3, keeping time with my pulse. Celeste clears her throat. The room shifts. Everyone expects another polished, Rhodes-approved anecdote. Instead, she locks eyes with me. "My fiancé and I fell in love arguing about housing rights." She says, He challenged my data, I challenged his comfort zone. Her fingers tighten on the mic. I believe love grows where accountability lives. I look forward to building that kind of marriage. Ripples of confused clapping. Graham's smile twitches. After dessert, Celeste intercepts me by the terrace. Gas lamps flicker against cypress shadows. You're the Amelia Rhodes who wrote Broken Leases, Broken Lives, aren't you? She asks, voice low. I nod. You sent the tenant files. She exhales. Graham never connected the dots. I didn't either. Until your name card landed. I search her face for contempt, find only calculation. I need to know. She says, were your facts solid, rock solid? I answer, your fiancé's partners bled those buildings dry. He sold his shares 2 weeks before I published. Celeste presses a thumb to her temple. Processing. Weddings tomorrow. I know. Are you here to blow it up? I'm here for truth. What you do with it is yours. Footsteps crunch over gravel. Graham. Celeste slips away. He approaches. Bourbon refreshed. You couldn't keep the spotlight off yourself for one night, he hisses. Ask your bride why she's late to the bouquet class. I say. He leans so close I smell the oak in his drink. You wreck this, I wreck you. I let silence answer. Midnight. Sleep is impossible in my childhood room, renovated into a guest suite stripped of memory. I wander the corridor, notebook in hand, hearing wind rattle stained glass. From downstairs, muffled voices. I follow. Library door ajar. Inside. Father, Graham, and 2 men in tailored suits hover over architectural renderings. I recognize one suit, Everett King, developer infamous for evictions masked as revitalization. Graham points to a map. Once we break ground, the press will buy the affordable units headline. Real profit hides in phase 2. Father nods. Everett slides a thick envelope across the mahogany. Permits. Time to sail through council Monday. My phone records every word. Camera lens framed by the cracked door. At breakfast, Mother fusses over buffet trays. Celeste appears pale, lips pressed tight. Graham's seat is empty. I whisper, you okay? She whispers back. Couldn't sleep. Then louder. Wedding's at 4. See you at the chapel. I slip outside. Rowan's podcast studio answers on first ring. Got something big. I say, need a quick segment, anonymous source for now. Rowan groans. Girl, it's Saturday. It's corruption with blueprints. UNA sigh. Then always. I send the audio file. She schedules an emergency upload. 2 p.m., 2 hours before vows. Perfect. Guests fill St. Francis Chapel. Stained glass casting jewel tones over satin. String quartet tunes up. I slide into a back pew. Phone on silent. Live stream of Rowan's episode ticking down in my lap. Graham stands at the altar, jaw tight. Celeste processes in lace and uncertainty. Rowan's intro music chimes through my earbuds. Breaking secret development deal may displace hundreds in Chupatulas district. Documents implicate Rhodes investments. She plays the library recording. Everett's voice oozes through the feed. In the pew ahead, a banker's phone buzzes, then another. Whispered shock ripples like wind through reeds. Celeste reaches the altar just as the uproar seeps inside. Graham's phone lights on the podium. He glances, color draining. Celeste sees the panic, tilts her head, asks something we can't hear. Graham forces a smile, motions the priest to begin. The priest clears his throat, hesitates. Someone hands him a buzzing phone. He reads the screen, frowns deeply. Celeste turns toward the pews. Is there something we should pause for? She asks, microphone carrying her calm accusation across marble. A cousin blurts, your fiancé's front page news. Gasps. Graham lunges for Celeste's hand. She steps back. Explain, she says. He sputters about timing. Sabotage. My bitter sister. The chapel stares. Celeste's cheeks blanch, then flush rose with decision. I won't marry into deceit, she announces, voice steady as courthouse stone. She slides off the ring, places it on the pulpit. A collective inhale sucks the air thin. Graham's rage swings to me. You planned this, he shouts, pointing. I rise. Notebook clutched, I reported the truth. Your own deals lit the fuse. He charges down the aisle. Security hired for show intercepts him before he reaches my pew. Guests scatter like startled birds. Mother sobs into a handkerchief. Father exits by a side door. Phone glued to ear. Empire unraveling in real time. Sunlight blinds as we spill onto the church steps. Reporters already gather. Rowan's audio looping from car radios. Celeste finds me amid the chaos. "This morning you asked what I'd do with the truth," she says. Voice raw. Answer, build something better. She shakes my hand no. She grips my wrist warrior style, turns to the cameras, and starts reciting the eviction clause buried in Graham's blueprints. Reporters devour every syllable. I step aside, letting her own the microphone she earned. Police escort Everett King away in cuffs within the hour. Unpaid citations finally catching up. Graham faces the press gauntlet. Father releases a bland apology. Stockin Rhodes Ventures free falls by closing bell. I drive back across the parish bridge. Windows down, cicadas screaming the day into dusk. Granddad's notebook rests in the passenger seat. A new entry inked across the last page. Legacy is the story that survives scrutiny. Tomorrow I'll draft part 2 for the paper. Tonight I feel the echo in my chest finally quiet. A special housing committee convenes at 10. Cameras shoulder to shoulder in the chamber. Protesters chant outside. I'm sworn in as the anonymous source behind Rowan's broadcast. Identity now public record. Councilwoman Alvarez asks first Ms. Rhodes, "Do you have hard copies of the Chupatulas blueprints?" "Yes. And the permit schedule, I pass them across." The renderings look obscene under fluorescent light luxury towers where shotgun homes stand. Everett King's lawyer mutters inadmissible. Alvarez slams her gavel. "We're not in court, we're in daylight." Applause thunders. Security hushes them. When Graham takes the witness chair an hour later, he's paler, suit rumpled. He blames rogue consultants, claims ignorance of Phase 2. The gallery hisses. Celeste sits behind the rail, arms folded, jaw iron. By noon, council freezes all Rhodes Ventures projects pending full audit. Headline crawls across every screen in the lobby. I step into humidity thick as soup. Mother rings. I brace. Her voice is small. "Your father collapsed this morning. Hypertension." They say. I swallow guilt. "Hospital St. Agnes, room 517. I'm coming." Father lies amid beeping machines. Oxygen cannula hissing like a slow fuse. He blinks at me but says nothing. Maybe he can't, maybe he won't. Mother grips my sleeve. "They're talking asset seizure. Can you ease the press?" 5 years of exile swirl in the antiseptic air. Truth is loose. "Mom, I won't muzzle it." Tears threaten her mascara. She nods, defeated, and sinks into the visitor's chair. Part of me aches. Another part stays granite. Both are tired. That night, Cousin Jade appears at my apartment clutching a banker's box. She worked as father's executive aide before he reassigned her for refusing shady invoices. "I found this hidden file," she whispers, inside ledgers dating back 3 decades and tucked in an envelope, Granddad's last will, different from the version probated after his death. I unfold brittle paper. Granddad bequeaths controlling shares of Rhodes Ventures to his first grandchild who demonstrates material service to the public good. A codicil if that heir is disowned at the time of proving worth. Shares transfer automatically. Jade blows out a breath. "You went public interest. They cut you off. That means the company is legally yours." I feel the ground pitch. All the anger I've carried turns to molten disbelief. I speed to Rowan's studio. She's finishing a segment. I wave the will like a battle flag. "Slow down," she says. "You'll need probate court, corporate counsel, maybe the National Guard. I need verification first." Rowan connects me to a retired chancery judge who confirms the seal and date. Legit. Owning Rhodes Ventures isn't revenge. It's a nuclear option. I could liquidate, pay reparations, walk away, but I also see a different shape: convert the empire into a social benefit trust. Fund affordable housing instead of bulldozing it. Use their gold to mend their cracks. The thought steadies me like deep ground. Next morning, I enter the tower that still bears my surname. Security too stunned to block me. Graham storms out of the elevator, legal team in tow. "You've ruined us." He spits. "Granddad did the paperwork. I just followed it," I reply, handing him a certified copy of the will and a temporary restraining order freezing asset transfers until ownership hearing. He rips the envelope open, scans. Face draining. "You can't run a corporation. I don't intend to run it." I say, I intend to rebuild it or bury it, your choice to help or watch. Celeste appears, now counsel for displaced tenants. She speaks before Graham can. Will help. Probate court smells of dust and old wood. Reporters pack benches. Protesters line the steps outside. Judge Williams recites Granddad's clause. Opposing counsel can't refute it. Gavels down, shares transferred to Amelia Rhodes, in trust for public benefit, effective immediately. Flashbulbs explode. I sign acceptance papers with Granddad's fountain pen, jade found in the box. Ink flows smooth, decisive. That evening we hold a press conference on the river levy. Celeste unveils the Rhodes Renewal Trust, co-chaired by labor reps and housing advocates. I announce the first act deeding 3 vacant warehouses to a cooperative that will build 200 units of mixed-income apartments. A journalist shouts, "What happens to your family wealth?" I glance at the Mississippi rolling dark gold. Wealth that hurts its own city isn't wealth, it's rot. We're composting it into something that feeds. Rowan's livestream chat fills with flood emoji approval. Somewhere in the hospital, father will see the headline crawl, daughter takes reins, pivots empire. Maybe his blood pressure will spike again, maybe relief will settle it. I can't control that. Midnight. I sit on my Marini balcony, tomato vines rustling, city humming low. Celeste texts, board voted 7-2 for conversion. Graham abstained but didn't block. I reply a simple thank you. Mother's number appears on my screen. After a long breath, I accept. She says only, your grandfather would be proud. Then maybe we can start there. I answer, it isn't forgiveness, but it's soil loosened for seeds. I close Granddad's notebook, write the final line, better stories grow in sunlight. Fireflies spark over the street like tiny flashbulbs. And for the first time in years, the house in my head feels quiet enough to sleep. Spring in New Orleans arrives like a second-line band, loud, bright, impossible to ignore. 2 months have passed since the probate gavel dropped, and the Rhodes Renewal Trust is no longer an idea. It's scaffolding and sawdust. Invoices stamped paid. Children peeking through chain link to watch their future rise. I spend mornings at the construction site in steel-toed boots and a linen blazer, reviewing safety logs while jazz drifts from a carpenter's radio. Evenings belong to spreadsheets and bylaws. Between, I visit St. Agnes Hospital, room 517, where the empire's old king lies tethered to monitors. Father's color has returned, but words remain scarce. Today I find him upright, studying the window as if the live oak beyond might rule in his favor. Mother dozes in the corner, crochet half done. I sit, set my leather folder on the tray. Board conversion is finalized. Worker shares vest next quarter. He closes his eyes. You turned my life's work into a charity case. No, I answer. Calm. I turned it into a covenant with the city you claimed to love. Silence stretches. Machines beep. At last he says, I never hated your reporting. I feared it would expose us before I secured the next deal. That fear ate everything, I reply, including us. He nods once, a concession, or maybe a farewell. Mother stirs, rushes to smooth tension, but I touch her wrist. We're okay. It isn't entirely true. Yet the words plant themselves like cypress knees, ready to hold earth. Back at headquarters now, a co-op floor painted sunrise gold. Celeste and I meet auditors in the boardroom where suits once whispered evictions. They confirm transfer of final parcels into the trust. Free of liens, a union delegate signs the memorandum. Her grin could split stone. Next, we livestream the first public stake session. Warehouse workers, janitors, tenants, and teachers queue at open mics to propose projects: a grocery in a food desert, mobile legal clinics, rooftop solar on schools. I jot notes until my pen runs dry. Jade hands me another. Smile wide. Rowan covers it all for the podcast, calling the process municipal kintsugi, mending civic cracks with the gold of accountability. Saturday dusk. I find Graham on the levee platform overseeing a barge push up river. Wind tugs his tie loose. He speaks first. Board offered me a non-voting seat on the housing committee. Celeste thinks I should take it. Do you want it, I ask. He watches the wake churn. I want to matter without breaking things. He exhales. Teach me. I picture the kid who once convinced me treehouses needed fire escape slides. That boy could learn. I nod. Come to the next stake session. Listen first, talk later. He cracks a brittle smile. Deal. June 1st. Humidity feels like velvet. Families gather in front of the freshly painted Magnolia Commons, 200 units of dignified brick, murals blooming along stairwells, a brass band warms up, toddlers dance in circles. I stepped to the mic. A year ago, these lots were slated to become condos no one in this zip code could afford. Today they're homes built by the very people moving in. I hold up a ring of bronze keys. Applause rolls like thunder on lake water. We hand keys to Ms. Alvarez, a widow who survived 3 hurricanes, to the Sanchez twins, both student teachers, to Mr. Baptiste, a jazz trumpeter who lost his apartment to a speculator last Mardi Gras. Tears, laughter, selfies, proof that a press release can become a door that opens. Thinner, but alert. We stop where the levee lights kiss dark water. I saw the news, he says, voice rusty. Those children running to pick bedrooms reminded me of when we first showed you your room here. I remember peach wallpaper and a pink and gold bicycle bow. I also remember learning, years later, that the displaced family never got another lease. Memory is mosaic beauty beside bruise. He grips the chair arms. How do I fix what I broke? Start by funding a scholarship for tenants' kids. I say, then listen more than you speak. I add, lighter, and let the auditors finish. A ragged chuckle escapes him. Bossy. Just like your grandfather. He lifts his hand. I take it. For the first time since the exile, our fingers thread without splinters. At home, tomato vines sprawl like victorious confetti. I sit on the balcony, Granddad's notebook open to a fresh page. Lessons from a year on fire. Truth is a lever. How you pull determines creation or collapse. Family is not immunity. It is material bendable, breakable, mendable. Cities, like stories, heal in the sunlight. A text pings Celeste's photo of tonight's sunset over Magnolia Commons. Caption day 1 and the courtyard already smells like gumbo. I reply with a heart and a promise to visit tomorrow. Below, another message from Mother. Your father slept easier. Thank you for the river. I close the notebook, lean back, and watch the moon crown the quarter. Music drifting from a porch 3 blocks away. In the distance, a crane silhouette marks the next trust project. There will be setbacks, lawsuits, nights when the city's ghosts scream louder than brass. But dawn keeps good time in New Orleans, and we are learning the steps. I lift my glass of iced tea to the skyline, to stories that survive scrutiny. I whisper, fireflies spark their agreement, tiny lanterns stitching air. Somewhere, Granddad is clapping slow and steady, like a judge with no objection left to raise.